Is everyone, assalamu alaikum, and welcome to the 77th session of LUMS Live. And today's topic is learning from others. Now, don't worry, it's not a boring lecture on ethics. It is because the title of the book we're going to discuss today is Learning from Others, and that's why we chose this topic. Or, as Sheikh Sadi would have said, Kamal-e Hamnishi, and more on that in a bit. Our panelists today, the first and foremost, we have with us Sayyid Babar Ali. If you don't know who Sayyid Babar Ali is, it reminds me of a little anecdote. It's not every day that one can embarrass Babar Sahab on a public platform and use this opportunity to the hilt. So I think it was George Bernard Shaw, the famous Irish playwright, who was once invited to an event. And the organizer asked him, how should I invite you and what should I say about you? He said, just call out my name. People who know me, and those who don't know me, don't deserve to know me. All right? So if you don't know who Babar Sahab is, okay, look up Wikipedia. It'll say Pakistani businessman, and that is the most misleading title. Don't fall for that. For young people, and I ask this in LUMS, and many people don't know Babar Sahab, and I tell them, well, to begin with, he's a founding pro-chancellor of LUMS. He's the one who made the phone call to Razak Daud Saab, and then the two of them got together, and then 35 years later we have LUMS, and then his business venture, long list, packages and Sanofi Aventis and Coca-Cola and Siemens, and all long list, accolades and awards, another long list, European awards, Swedish, Netherlands, America, British, American, Pakistani, but that's not his true introduction. His true introduction would be, in my humble opinion, would be many generations owe a debt of gratitude to him. There are very few people in this country and in the world where generation after generation, people look up to a person and they are indebted. And Babar Sahab is that, one of those people. And we are grateful and honored that he could take out time today. Babar Sahab, a very warm welcome to you, sir. And thank you for your time today. We have a few movers and shakers of LUMS. So we have a powerhouse today. We have the Vice Chancellor. He just arrived in Canada, and we disturbed him on a Saturday morning. Always takes out time for us. Dr. Arshad Ahmed is with us. Dr. Arshad, thank you for joining us today, sir. We have Dr. Sadaf Aziz. Dr. Sadaf is the interim dean of the Sahasol, the Sheikh Ahmed Hassan School of Law at LUMS. Dr. Sadaf, thank you for joining us today. And last but not least, we have Dr. Sulaiman Shahid, the assistant professor at the School of Science and Engineering. And I deliberately didn't mention the entire name of the school. Babar Sahab feels embarrassed. Additionally, Dr. Shahid is also the director of LUMS Learning Institute. And I use the word director in the broadest possible context, and you'll know why in just a second. Today, we'll talk a lot about the book. Okay, if you don't know this book, find it online, Learning from Others. It's Babar Sahab's autobiography. Order it. Buy it, read it. Okay, a slight little footnote before I forget. All the proceeds from the book goes towards the scholarship fund of LUMS students, people who can't afford it. So buy this book. But that's not the reason to read it. It's a great book. Read the book. Read the book. Okay, so I'll start with Babar Sahab. Babar Sahab, 85 years, 86 years before you decided to write an autobiography, what made you write down all those experiences in a book form, and then 6 years later, 7 years later, you decided to make a video series on that? Why? What's the need for that?
Well, I mean, the book was written because over the years, I was talking to some of my friends who were visiting me, and we were discussing about various aspects of my journey, and they said, why don't you write it down? Because it doesn't, what I was talking was not only about myself, but about the experience I had, the people I had met, what I had learned. So that prompted me to write the book. And of course, a friend of mine, Naveed Riaz, saw that book, and then he said, no, we need to discuss this chapter by chapter, and he would read a certain page, and then he would come and ask me questions, and that was recorded. So it was elaborated. Whatever I had written down was elaborated in the discussion, and then it was typed out, and then, of course, it was cleaned up. And so the book took about a couple of years to be in the form at which it was finally printed. And there were a number of people who helped me with that. Of course, Naveed Riaz was the one who was asking me questions, and I was responding to that. And then Sahil, my assistant, played a very important role in transcribing the recorded version into a written one. And then I had a friend by the name of Lucy Peck who went through it, and she suggested that we break it up into these various sections in which it finally appeared. Now, as far as the recording is concerned, there is a kind of a story behind it. My niece Jugnu came and she said she wanted to come and talk to me, and she came, and lo and behold, there was a recorder and a camera and everything else, and she was naughty. She went and sold that interview to Habib Bank. It was put on the on some kind of media, and then I got a whole kind of requests from Cambridge University, from New Zealand, from Australia, to say that can they talk to me, and I said sure, and which I did. And then there was a request from the faculty and some of the people at LUMS that could they come and talk to me, and I said sure. So all this just sort of, it was not planned, it came out of an unplanned kind of an effort. And of course, Suleiman Shahid played a very important role in recording it. He and his team gave a lot of time during the summer months, and there was a lot of effort. We had to sit outside because we couldn't record it inside because of COVID. And outside there was a lot of noise, and it had to be timed between different azans and all that kind of thing. So it was quite an interesting effort. But finally, I think it's what has come out, I hope, is acceptable to people. So it's unplanned. And what I had requested people who would come and interview me is not to give me any idea as to what they're going to talk about. And I should not be privy to any of the questions. Everything was a cold call. So everything was recorded without any prior notice about the subject, about the time, about the matter they wanted to discuss. So it was all impromptu. And I think, well, I enjoyed it. I don't know whether anybody else did, but it was totally unplanned. And so here it is. This is how the whole thing has happened.
Barbershop, how many things in your life have been unplanned? Just wondering.
I mean, the whole life has been unplanned except taking an examination at the school.
All right.
The rest of the things have just fallen in place. I've been very lucky. I got this opportunity, and it worked well. I mean, I'm much thankful to Almighty for giving me the opportunity, and I availed of it, and I'm very happy that I was able to do a little bit.
I'll come to Dr. Suleiman in just a second, but first, Dr. Arshad. Dr. Arshad, when young people, not just LUM students, would see this series of videos, and I believe it's 23, more on that from Dr. Suleiman. What can we expect? What can the young people expect to gain from it? Now we know that young people perhaps are not avid readers anymore. They were 20 years ago when I was younger, but now people are into videos. They want to see a TED talk. They want to see So these videos based on the book, how helpful would that be for LUM students and as well as for other young people? Or is it just a video, as Barbershop said, unplanned, and we don't know what the impact would be?
I think we can make some fairly reasonable guesses as to what the impact will be. First of all, you're right that young learners tend to focus on social media and on videos and audio, podcast, etc. A lot more than the traditions that we have been groomed with. But I think they too discriminate between substance and whether or not the person who is being interviewed in this case is connecting with them. And I think you'll find throughout the series, as I did, that the attention Babar Saab gives to the learner is paramount, which is, of course, in the title of his book, Learning from Others. And his curiosity is infectious in certainly, maybe that's not the right metaphor in COVID times, but you know what I mean. It's something that you cannot help but also feel that he's so authentic with his impromptu answers based on authentic experiences that he's had, and so generous in sharing them that I think all the young people will connect much more so than perhaps scholars who are looking to critique a sentence here or a thought there. This is a message of life, I think, for a very wide audience, and especially for young people.
Dr. Suleiman, 2 questions. Typically, a movie, in this case a series, is usually not as good as the book. So is it going to be as good as the book? So that's one. Secondly, when is it going to come out? And thirdly, 3 questions at once. How was your experience putting together, this series, going through the process? Anything that unfolded? How was working with Babar Saab?
Thank you, Adil. So I'll take the last one first. I think we can spend, as I said, we can spend like whole evening on this nice topic, that how the process was. I think it was quite extraordinary, once in a lifetime experience. And it all started, as Babar Saab said, with Naveed Riaz's call. What an amazing man he is, and his support and dedication was really remarkable to the process. And I wish I had known him much earlier, but still, it's a great discovery at my end. So, so at LUMS, I'm as a director LUMS Learning Institute. I'm also I also manage the complete multimedia team. So we have excellent videographers, editors, and I received a call from Naveed Riaz कि मियाँ आप एक studio चलाते हैं, so we need you. And at that time, I had no clue. इसके अलावा there is a side story. I'll not go into that. Babar Saab knows, and Naveed Riaz knows, and Dr. Rashid knows, but I think that's for later. But I went into this, and I thought it's kind of a transactional thing. We'll record 3-4 interviews. I'll spend like 2-3 weekends and we'll be done. And only after, once we started going into this, it turned out that it's going to be going to be truly amazing experience. We started with 10 episodes. It converted into 15 episodes, then in 20 episodes, and then 23 episodes. And I think we can easily record 20 more. But then it was COVID times, and we were sitting outside. It was June, July, August, and but Babar Saab was there with full energy. He was always on time, and he was always sharing his thoughts. And it was amazing to see that you're asking him something which has happened 1940, and he's answering that it happened yesterday, and you're sitting there and wondering that the gentleman doesn't know what is going to be asked. He has no clue about the context, that where we're coming from. He doesn't know the topic, and then everything, it's still so solid, so real, and so authentic. So, and while doing all these things, we had 23 individuals, LUMS faculty, sitting, coming in. They have all read the book. They were all very prepared. They spent hours and hours, in understanding and preparing for questions. So it all made it very authentic, and I think this that's a first point. And the second point is that me as a producer director learned a lot from this activity. So when you talk about learning from others, in every episode, in every sitting, in return, we're learning a lot from Babar Saab, but also Babar Saab trying to learn from us. There's always a very interesting session of Babar Saab asking questions, genuinely curious that what is happening in our lives, what is happening outside, and trying to understand our point of view and then learn from us. I think there was a very conversational approach. It was not only giving, but also sort of, getting from our side. And thirdly, and more importantly, I think what we have not covered in many of these episodes, which happened after this recording. There was off the camera. I think there were long sessions where Babar Sahib also talked about lots of other issues. And I think now when I reflect back on that, I think we can easily arrange 10, 12 more interviews. And I think I can cover those things which were not covered during these sessions. So in general, it was truly a humbling experience, in my opinion. And something, I'll never forget my whole life. Secondly, about the documentary video series being better than a book, 100%. I'm sorry about it, but 200%. I think it's not a replica of Babar Sahib book. It generally extends Babar Sahib book. It extends in many, many different ways. It takes input from the book, but then goes beyond it. It helps the interview to bring personal story, then request Babar Sahib to reflect on the story and take it further. It takes leadership. For example, Arshad Sahib talked about leadership, but he was able to bring very specific questions on leadership, which goes beyond the book. And then we also were able to divide this video series in two parts. There's a one part which focuses on, the complete book, like 13 chapters, 13 episodes. But then there's a very interesting part which also covers LUMS, 5 different schools, 5 deans talking about LUMS, and things like that. So I think it certainly extend the book. And I think all the viewers will have a much more extended experience and immersive experience. If they've read the book, they'll love it much more than that.
All right, let's see. That's for the viewers to decide. You seem quite sure, but हाथ कंगन को आरसी क्या, पढ़े लिखे को फारसी क्या? We'll wait and see, and I hope it's better. Dr. Sadaf, Dr. Sulaiman mentioned about that Babar Sahib is a great proponent and follower of learning, and I remember there was one particular session I was doing at LUMS. This is pre-COVID. It was leaders at LUMS, and there was one boy at the back, 18, 19 years old, and he raised his hand to ask a question, and his question was that I'm 19 or 20. And I've learned all that I had to. What more can I learn? And that was his question. And Babar Sahib was sitting, in the front row. So he raised his hand and he gets the mic and stands up and says, I'm 92. If I'm still learning, I'm sure you can too. And that was a great lesson to him and everybody else. And I remember that. So Babar Sahib is also a great believer in multidisciplinary learning. People don't focus on one particular thing. Now, do we do that at LUMS? Do students learn different things, interdiscipline? Is it being practiced at LUMS, especially at the liberal arts school?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think that, by design, this has now been incorporated to a greater and greater extent within all of the kind of curricular offerings across various schools. So certainly within MGHSS, which is the School of Social Sciences and Humanities, they have something called a core curriculum, whereby students have to take courses from various disciplinary, perspectives and baskets, and then define their majors and the like within a particular disciplinary stream. I think certain disciplines are interdisciplinary by nature. So when, as representing the legal, the law school at LUMS, there's nothing that we do that does not address issues from various disciplinary perspectives. So whether we're teaching contract law, thereby, students have to know something about economic functioning, basic business models, things of that sort. Everything has a kind of trans or interdisciplinary focus. Are we incorporating it more and more within our curriculum? Yes, absolutely. And going back to what you were saying, about how Babar Sahib, I think, counted that students kind of, just, I would say, foolhardy kind of sense of confidence about himself. I mean, I wanted to say that, as you were asking Dr. Sulaiman and Dr. Arshad about the experience of having interviewed Babar Sahib, I mean, this was my overwhelming experience of it, was to just be in the presence of somebody who had this incredible panoramic and also quite central, insight into the history both of the subcontinent, but also, a kind of a historical perspective that was very well placed for seeing the shifting sands of so many kinds of social forces being unleashed, changes happening at so many levels. and who inserted himself always with a certain amount of humility, modesty, could speak so introspectively and interestingly about those things. And one thing that I was really intrigued by is that I had always assumed before encountering Baba Saab's sort of biography and autobiography that this was, potentially a latter day turning in his life, that he turned to social philanthropy after, of course, having lived this life, in the private sector, building a kind of, empire of sorts. But then it was very interesting for me to see that this was a life where public service had been interspersed with his own, other activities throughout his lifetime. And there were really interesting sort of perspectives that he had, dating from, very interesting sort of encounters, such as after the nationalization of Zede Bhutto, and but he still chose to re-enter the kind of public sphere at that point and help found certain institutions. So I think that was really, really interesting for me to encounter that. So I think what Baba Saab said to that student was hugely appropriate, and clearly he has lived that way his whole life. And I think that the imprint on Lams is something that for me was really revelatory, is that Baba Saab's ability to set up an institution, to establish it, and to step back and not seek to drown it out, with any particular objective, and to create and truly foster an environment for learning and for pluralism. So that was very intriguing.
Barbara, there's a particular line in your book that troubles me, and I need your guidance. Help me with this. You talk so fondly and respectfully of your parents, your mother and your father, Sayyid Maratib Ali, and you talk about integrity and values and authenticity. And there's a sentence which says, sadly, in our society in the last few years or few decades, there's been a complete breakdown of honesty and a complete breakdown of integrity. Why is integrity and honesty and values, why are these important? And what are these things? Are they just concepts that you read in a book, in a holy book, or are they real? And why are they important? What would you tell a young person who's studying today in Pakistan, in LUMS and IBA, wherever, and he sees, well, dishonesty prevalent in society? How do you make him or her stand up for authenticity, integrity, honesty, and values, all those good things? What do you say to that young person?
Well, I mean, what little I've learned in life is that if you don't have integrity, you have nothing. If I've had the opportunity of selecting people to go into an important job and an important assignment. We're looking at people and they have all the qualification, all the degrees and all the learning, and they've attended this program and that program. And the final question you ask yourself, is he honest? If that criteria is missing, then I would not appoint a person in a responsible position. So to me, this is the most important aspect of one's life. It's if you don't have that, you don't have anything else. And unfortunately today, the issues that we are seeing, not only in Pakistan, but around the world, if you don't have integrity, if you don't have honesty among the people, then what is there to live for? Your life is so short that, go from birth to death in a twinkle of an eye. And what do you leave behind? And if you read books, if you read literature, what stands out in people who have had integrity are the ones that are living much beyond their own life. I mean, in our recent life, I can take the life of the Qaid-e-Azam, Mr. Jinnah. I mean, he was not a practicing Muslim. He just didn't dress up like a Muslim. He was as Western as you could be. And in India, I mean, I'm talking of the 40s, the early 40s and late 40s till the time of partition. From Cape Comorin to Gilgit, everybody voted for him majority of the people voted for him, and especially the illiterate people voted for him only for one reason, that he was an honest man. He couldn't speak their language. He couldn't sort of interact with them, but they said, here is an honest man. We will go, we will vote for him. And if you look at our own Islamic history, I mean, the first Muslim was your prophet. What stood out? He was an Ameen. That was his sterling quality, and God chose him to be his prophet only for one reason, because he was an honest man. His wife, the lady who became his wife later on, chose him to be her manager only because he was honest. People don't realize how important integrity and honesty in life is. And this is one subject which we have totally abandoned. Thank you.
Dr. Arshad, Barbershop talks about leadership, where I remember he mentioned once that a leader is someone who gives more than he takes or she takes. And that one doesn't have to be leader for that. One could simply be a follower, and yet you could give more and take less. It's just the concept of it. And that doesn't mean material things only. It could mean time and expertise and anything that you acknowledge. How do you convince young people where perhaps the driving force is the paycheck? I want to have X amount of money. I want to have so many perks, and that's how become a leader. How do you teach them? How do you tell them it's the giving and not the taking that makes you a person of integrity, that makes you a leader, or not even a leader, a good, noble human being, a good, noble person? How do you tell people that? How do you tell youngsters that?
Well, I mean, you don't become a leader by claiming yourself a leader. You are a leader because people have faith in you. People agree to not to follow you, but to really to accept you as somebody who could guide them. And you don't sort of thump your chest like a gorilla that you are a leader. The leader is somebody who is humble, who is modest, and who is caring, who's interested in the wellness, not only physical wellness, but mental wellness and financial wellness, and in improving the people who are working with you. You are all the time helping others to become better than you. I mean, a good teacher is the one who really aspires to have his student learn more than him or her. And so that is how the world should progress, and that is how the world, the areas or schools or colleges or parties or countries that have progressed, is they have always worked that the people they are working with should learn more than them, and they should be able to perform better than them. So this is a part of life which I think we should strive to inculcate in people, that by helping others, you don't become weak, you become stronger. And so long, I mean, that in the teaching profession, people from the academic world are here on the screen. I don't have to tell them that their biggest reward is their students performing better than them. I once asked a doctor, I said, what pleases you? He said, my compensation is the smile on the face of a patient. When the patient smiles, that is my compensation. That encourages me to pursue the profession that I am in. And similarly, a teacher excels in his profession when he realizes and when he sees his students, he or she see their students perform well. I mean, we here, sitting here in the Silicon Valley, I am in touch with people. Many of our alums, graduates are here, and it makes my day when I talk to them and they're saying how well they are doing and how well they are progressing. And so this is something which has a reward of its own, which has you can't convert that into anything else other than inner satisfaction. And that to me is the most valuable asset that one can have, is to feel pleased inside.
Dr. Arshad, can you actually do that? Can universities do that? Can they inculcate values in young people? Can they make them good leaders? Can they teach them not maths, physics, science, law, business, but can universities teach them to give more and take less? Is it really teachable? You know, if that's a term.
It is a term, and I think there are several institutions that actually do that and do that very well. And when you have conversations like we are right now, as we were privileged to have with Barbershop during the video series, one of my reflections is simply this, that, you know, he takes a real delight in speaking with you. I mean, you feel that. You feel that every time you're with him, and that's a privilege. So others, young people, when they sense that, and young people, by the way, are exposed to teachers from the time they are born. You know, first their parents, and then they go to kindergarten. They know how to read teachers. They know an honest teacher from a dishonest one, in the sense of someone who cares for you. So I wanted to amplify that point about taking interest in somebody else. That I think resonated with me more than anything else, is how much interest Barbershop takes in others people's success, whether it is faculty and staff. So he'll often come into the campus, and we all know he will make cold calls on them just to have a conversation, not to check on whether they're doing their work, but what are they up to? What are some of the challenges they're facing? What are some of the opportunities before them? And this is genuine interest. So it's more about modeling behavior rather than telling people what to do. People don't learn by others telling you what to do. And if you have families, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Even your most closest loved ones don't just listen to you because you told them so. They learn when they see that learning is demonstrated in ways that comes right back to you to make you a stronger person and a stronger family, for that matter. And Barbershop talked about family a lot, about how important it is for parents to play their role in the education and formative development of young people, because after all, most of the time is spent at home. And then when we're away from home, most of the time spent in school, only a few years at university. And by that time, we have to amplify the values, and we have to show a mirror and say, this is what, honesty looks like, or this is what giving to others looks like. So the business of teaching, I think, has a lot to do with, genuinely going beyond the book, as Barbershop would put it. I mean, it's not about just book learning. It's about what you do outside, bring in your experiences from the knowledge that you bring to the classroom to how that will impact on your behavior with others. So if I remember correctly, in the interview I had with Barbershop, he talked a lot about respect, that you're standing in your home with your brothers and sisters, with your parents and with your friends, and then more importantly, at work, where you spend most of your life, is the respect you garner in modeling good behaviors. And teachers have to do that. So coming back to your leadership question, how do we do that? I think one advice he gave to us was, get all your deans to teach a course. Get them to be very close to students. Show them that you're interested in their learning, because they must, at the end of the day, do better than you. And if you want to know about their development, start from day one in the classroom. I think that's really good advice. Just as he mentioned, I remember about mentoring. I think he gave an example of a student from Oxford who had given him a call saying, I don't really know you, your name has been recommended, but I'd like to spend some time with you because that's my assignment. And can you be my mentor? And so I think Barbershop, and he can confirm this or not, he said, okay, come and spend time with me. a couple of weeks, which he did. And I happened to meet the young man also. And when it was all over, he said, well, because Barbershop didn't do anything, he was just being himself. And he just shadowed him and followed him around. And at the end of the day, he said, I got exactly what I came here for. And that is, again, a reflection of doing things in real time on a day-to-day basis, not about what you will do 5 years from now, but what you will do today. How will you spend your time today to give the gifts that have been given to you? And that's a line I'll never forget from Barbershop, is everything we have inherited, everything we receive is a gift. And if we value those gifts, then it is our obligation to give those gifts back to people who most deserve them, especially those who are not privileged or who come from socioeconomic backgrounds where all they lack for is an opportunity. So I think it's this kind of a mindset. It's a way of thinking about people, because to me, the book and the interviews and for those of us who want to get close to Barbershop, you must hear these videos. In one word, I would say that Barbershop is a humanist in the highest order, because he is interested in people, and we are social animals. And he personifies that in a way that very few people can.
That's a great line, the gifts. We have so many gifts, we sometimes don't even realize how many gifts we have. And then it's important to give them. I think it was Winston Churchill who said, we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. And giving is so important. And not just, one more time, not just material things, not just money, but also expertise and time and guidance and warmth and compassion. There's so many things we can give. Dr. Suleiman, 2 questions. When can we see these videos? When are they coming out? So that's one. And secondly, you had mentioned that the videos are better than the book. I'm not going to trust you on that until I see the videos. But for a second, let's say they are. And you were saying it's an extension, so to speak, of the book, or it's an extension of Barbershop experiences. Tell us more about that. Anything that's perhaps not in the book that we can expect in the videos. Anything that unfolds, because video and screen and real people is a different experience from a written word. So tell us more about that.
So the videos, yes, yeah, the word, we are on mute. So so the videos would be released next week. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna do it week by week. They'll be broadcasted through LUM's live page. We have 23 episodes. So every week there'll be one episode, there'll be a promo of that episode, and a shorter version, what we call nuggets videos, would also be uploaded on Instagram and on Barbershop's YouTube channel. So you will watch the whole video, but you'll also see some of the key takeaways of that video in a smaller versions, which are shareable. So you can share via WhatsApp, you can share via Instagram, so that, there are some rules and some information nuggets. I feel, and I strongly believe that these video series is an extension in many different ways. First of all, this is also a very emotional series, because you really see Barbershop caring about what he's saying and caring about the country, caring about our youth, caring about in general about everything he's talking about. So I think it's reflected in a much more substantial manner in the videos, I would say. Secondly, what we have seen, there are very clear themes in this video series. For example, we can see a very interesting theme, Barbershop talking about again and again the importance of family, and how it is important to sort of pay attention to this, and what kind of a role your family can play, your mother, father can play, your brothers can play, your siblings can play in that. So you see one theme. Second thing we have already talked about is honesty, integrity. This whole theme, and interesting thing about this video series that you will see Barbershop talking about this issue of integrity in many different facets and angles. It will come the way he has tackled it or addressed it in the business world, in the giving world, in the education world, in all different ways, in the service world. So that's another thing we will see, that integrity. Thirdly, I think something which was not really covered in the book that in a detail is his focus on education. So there's a smaller part of that in the book, but then the whole series extends that thanks to all the deans who came, thanks to the vice chancellor who came, and other faculty members who came, and really took this conversation forward, that how to think about youth, how to think about alums, and how to think about giving to education, not only now, but also in the future. And Barbershop repeatedly told about that the only and the best way to solve problems is through education. And I think that focus is also reflected, in my opinion, in these. And finally, what you see in all these videos is it's a continuation, but also they are individually distinct stories. Each video is complete, in its message. So you don't have to watch the complete series. You must watch, because I think you'll miss a lot if you don't watch. But even a single episode has a complete material in it. So you can learn a lot from that, about the childhood, about the business, about the service, and more importantly, about what Barbershop has given to the world and to Pakistan. So I think in all these ways, this whole series extend the book in a very meaningful fashion. So you'll learn a lot then, and it'll go beyond the book.
Okay, we'll surely watch the videos, but many of you watch the videos, but also read the book and read the Urdu version as well. Read both the versions. Keep your Urdu alive as well. It was Patras Bukhari who wrote to his son in an eloquent English letter, and at the end he says, "Make sure you keep your Urdu alive." So by all means, read the English version and the videos, but keep your Urdu alive. Dr. Sadaf, we talked about values, and Dr. Sulaiman also mentioned how Barbershop emphasizes those. And Dr. Arshad mentioned how Barbershop wants deans to be teachers as well. So they are close to the students. So they're teaching, they're connected with the students. Can we do that? Can we inculcate values in students? Can we really do that? Can a university alone do that? Or is it the responsibility of the society, the parents, the friends, the family? How does that work? I'm still stuck with that. So help me out here.
I think that there are, of course, nothing can operate in isolation, and, undue conditioning necessarily, thoroughly, fully, that is coming from other forces, right? So when students arrive at a university, it's already quite late in their development. Nonetheless, it's still a very formative stage, right? They're young adults, they are moving out of the family and into a larger world. There are ways in which a kind of public ethics is there to be inculcated, is there to be demonstrated in certain ways. I think there are lots of things that, intersect with the question that you're asking. So if Barbershop believes that deans should be teaching, I completely agree with that. And I think that what that represents also is a move away, or, the resistance against a corporatization of the university, right? And universities worldwide are in certain types of crises right now. And I think in certain ways, Pakistan, we still have the conditions of possibility for retaining a particular and distinct character for our educational institutions. And that isn't a kind of nativism and a turning away from global knowledge and things of that sort, but it is the resistance to those kinds of what I would call a kind of professionalization, and the ways in which the learning enterprise becomes dictated in a kind of hierarchical fashion. One of the things, so I joined LUMS when, around 15, 16 years ago, when the law school was being started up. And I was so impressed, and I hadn't gone to an institute of higher education in Pakistan for very long. I mean, I had been to the NCA, which was also a quite fun experience, I must say. But beyond that, what I found really, really intriguing about the possibilities and the pedagogies that were employed at LUMS were just the immediacy with which one could, take one class out and join a protest. One could, take one's class and, or bring in guest speakers. One could do all sorts of things. There was a very strong linkage to what was happening in society. And I think that continues to be the case, and there continues to be a preference for that. So I think that there are things that, can be done. And I think that, certainly, and this happens across all of the schools potentially. I think, as somebody who teaches within the general kind of social sciences, law is a social science in those ways, we have the benefit of being able to talk about these things from a historical perspective. What are kinds of movements that people have joined forces to fight for, what are principles of justice? How have people joined forces in order to fight for those things? What can we support about those in a very, immediacy in our surroundings, those sorts of things. One can speak about these things conceptually, right? One can speak about moral duties. One can speak about different views of justice. Is justice a kind of individual dispensation that each of us get because we have fair processes in society? Or is it something that we strive for, an equal distribution of things? Is it absolute equality between all people? So I think that there are all sorts of mental exercises. There are things, of kind of shared learning. There are all sorts of ways in which at that pivotal moment in people's lives, and hopefully they're coming already, whether that is in a religious idiom, whether it is in a humanistic idiom, or in various other ways, with a notion of what justice and fairness and honesty and what these things mean. And so how one further molds that, what kinds of things one models, I think that, and I see it all the time. I mean, I think that LUM students have been very lucky. I really think that, the intimacies of space, the size, is one part of it, that it's still relatively small. Those things help to inculcate, values in a dialogic fashion, right? I think we understand that, the sum is greater than its part, and students see that exemplified.
Barbershop, you've emphasized the importance of interdisciplinary or cross-disciplinary learning for students. Why is it important? Why do students need to learn lots of disciplines? Why the emphasis on that? And secondly, why not open a LUMS in Karachi? I remember people approaching you and they said, open a LUMS in Karachi. We'll pay you the money. We'll give you the space. Open one in Karachi. Why not do that? Why not give a franchise?
I mean, the whole idea is not to, make it into a business. But let me answer your first question. That you cannot compartmentalize your learning. To say that I'll only study science, or I'll only study arts, or I'll only study languages. There is so much to be learned from different subjects. I mean, for instance, I went to Enriching College. I was there for 9 years. We had a whole array of different subjects: Urdu, Persian, history, literature, sciences. The only thing I today can recall of my days at Enriching is Sadi, that I studied there as a minor subject. And the more I think about my days in the Persian class, I feel that I should have paid more attention to it. I remember our Persian teachers, Anwar Sikandar Khan, he said, one day you will look back to your days of Sadi and you will say that it'll make a difference in your life, which today I think I find that if any learning that I did at Enriching College was, apart from playing cricket with a straight bat and playing tennis and all that, was what little I learned from Sadi. The humility and the knowledge he talked about Sakhavat and about various other subjects. So I think the broader the skill and the knowledge that you have, especially at the undergraduate level, is most important, because you really don't know what in life you will learn ultimately, what will benefit you. I find that reading subjects which I never studied before are of immense interest and immense benefit to improve my thinking. So you cannot compartmentalize your learning. I was talking to one of our alumni who's on the faculty at, it's a unique opportunity. He's the first one from LUMS to have joined the faculty at Stanford. And I asked him, I said, what kind of students do you have here? And he said, there's a problem at Stanford because we are in the Silicon Valley. Our students either want to study computer science or they want to study finance. And he said, we are bending backwards to try and to persuade them to study other subjects than where they can make money, because this ultimately will enrich their soul and their quality of life and everything else. So it's not only confined to us in Pakistan, it's a worldwide phenomenon that the young people are too much in a hurry to earn money rather than become an educated person.
Dr. Arshad, I'm going to tell you a little story that Baba Sahib told me years ago, and then I'm posing you a question as an extension. Baba Sahib, correct me if I'm wrong, many years ago I paid a visit to him, and he had just come back from the US. And I said, Baba Sahib, so how was experience at the US? What did you do? He said, I met a friend of mine, some professor in Washington or someplace else, and he had taken some months off. He was a chemistry professor. He'd taken some months off to study Shakespeare. So he said, I met him and asked him, why Shakespeare? So he said, the professor replied, because you can't do chemistry until you know Shakespeare. So it just didn't make any sense. It makes perfect sense to me now. So my question to you is, when you joined LUMS, there was a white paper on, learning without borders or no borders learning. Was it just a paper? Was it just an idea, or has it been put into practice? Can we see it happening at LUMS, learning without borders?
Well, I mean, I'm all the time stressing. When I came back, I know this was Professor Steve Berry at Chicago University, who was a chemist. He told me about Shakespeare. Then I came back and I said, why not Iqbal? Iqbal is perhaps more relevant to us at LUMS than Shakespeare is. And I said, somebody who's studying chemistry or studying physics or studying any other subject should also study Iqbal. And so I've been talking to people at LUMS, and I said, my suggestion would be to introduce Iqbal in the mandatory subjects of Islamiyat. 90% of Iqbal is Islam. I can share with you during the COVID, for the first half hour of my day, I study Iqbal. And I find that Iqbal is nothing but, Islam, and he's decrying the fate of Islam in the hands of the mullah all the time. So this is something that we need to discover. I mean, there is so much of Islam in Bulle Shah, so much Sufism in Guru Nanak. I mean, these are giants that have been there in our land of 5 rivers. We should encourage our students to study them, to respect them, and to learn from them. They may not get a job, but because of studying Bulle Shah this morning somebody sent me a very interesting email from India, where a grandfather, son, and a grandson all recited Heer. I mean, there's so much of wealth in our own literature which we should encourage our students, because they've not had the benefit of studying either Waris Shah or Bulle Shah or Iqbal in their early schools, and we should give them the opportunity to catch up. And I see there is no limit to learning, either vertically or horizontally. We should give every opportunity to our students to enrich their lives.
And I'm going to casually mention the name Faiz in between Bulle Shah and Iqbal.
Yeah. Faiz, of course, is a part. Only last week I heard a young girl who was Pakistani graduating from New York University. And her first sentence was, I come from a poor family in Pakistan. And she narrated her stay at New York University and what she learned. And she ended up by singing Hum Dekhenge. So, Faz is very much a part of our life. It's something which हमारे रग और रेशे में है. You can't take it away.
Dr. Arshad, interdisciplinary learning without borders, what does that mean? As I mentioned, you had written a white paper. So was it just a paper? Was it just in theory, or do we see it in LUMS being practiced? Tell us a bit more about that, Dr. Arshad.
Okay, just way before the paper was written, you can just look at an actual physical building called Sayyid Babari School of Science and Engineering. Science and engineering. Now, a lot of people would just say that now as if it's a ubiquitous term, but in fact, it's a true innovation where you are bringing in two giant disciplines, merging them together and breaking down all the boundaries. It was a no boundaries idea that created that school. So it's very much visible in that sense. But then that's one school. What about the other four schools? And so I think when we go back to the conversation we were having about, giving back, I think this ties in with giving back actually, in the sense that, ultimately when we go through our studies, students go through their studies and they are exposed to this rich panoply of courses, programs, and they're all next door. By the way, you can walk from one building to another. You don't have to take a bus or anything. LUMS is very intimate that way. And you discover through these corridors of knowledge and learning, so many intersections that lead towards the kind of questions that we are facing as a country. So I think if we have to take it to another level and say, ultimately, what are we doing this for? And Barbershop puts that very well. I think it was during the interview I did, or maybe someone else did, that he said, ultimately, after your education, you will go places if you have good intentions. Don't forget the good intention part. And you will achieve things. You may be in another country, as many of our alumni are. Half of our alumni are around the world, and they're doing, mashallah, quite well. And Barbershop is their biggest champion, by the way. He's the one who personally follows up with individuals and asking them, कि आप क्या कर रहे हैं? आपकी जिंदगी में क्या हुआ है? And those kahanis he will share with us regularly in a way to a powerful reminder of what the education can do and still needs to be done. So to all those alumni, the message was that Barbershop said was, don't forget your mother. And your mother is your country, Pakistan. So come back to Pakistan, as many of us have done. And when you come back to Pakistan, you realize what an immense privilege and opportunity you have through this education to make a difference in other people's life. So this is the giving part. But when you look at the big questions that the country faces, and you can pick any one you like, whether it is related to science and engineering, water, energy, big data, artificial intelligence, all these 21st century topics that are in the front and center in the minds of young people now, you also think about inequity. You also think about justice, what Sadaf Sahiba was saying earlier on. You think about the gross inequalities that our society has in some ways exaggerated and entrenched in the lives of many who were just born into these situations. So how do you turn those around as opportunities, and how do you make a difference? Well, none of those questions, none of those challenges can be answered through a single discipline. So we come back to the question of interdisciplinarity, cross-disciplinarity, multidisciplinarity, transdisciplinarity. These are all different degrees of unifying knowledge. And the idea of LUMS and this paper that you asked me about was to try and put together some thoughts with a lot of consultation from our deans and from those who are concerned about the future of the institution, which we are all there to serve. that how are we going to unify our scholars? The biggest treasure LUMS has are its faculty. And those faculty have been trained to think in a disciplinary way for good reasons, and they should continue to promote that discipline. But if they are to solve the country's problems, they must work together. And we must, at LUMS, as administrators, find ways to break borders, the artificial borders we've created, the departments, the silos, the centers, that kind of do their own thing. But the problems require them to be working together. And so the idea is very simple: unify great experts that we have, break down the walls, and do them in a way where students are part of that experience. They are, in fact, partners of that experience. They are not spectators, they're not consumers. They are very integral to the whole knowledge creation, knowledge dissemination, and then, of course, application of what they learn here in civil society, in the work they do in communities, and constantly remind themselves that they have to pass on the gift that was given to them. So I think this is what I learned from Barbershop in a much clearer ways than when the paper was written. It was then just a framework. And what we are doing now is, leaders like Dr. Sadaf and Dr. Suleiman, and there are many deans who I know are watching this. Dr. Faisal from the School of Education, which is our youngest school and the one with the greatest growth opportunities. And Dr. Al-Noor Bhimani from the Business School, our oldest school, who are breaking down barriers in so many ways, especially for women. And of course, Dr. Sabi Anwar, who is working in science and engineering, working together, bringing all of the disciplines together to try and find ways in which our faculty can progress in their careers, but also be very mindful for the purpose as to why they do what they do. I think this is I want to underline that again and again. This is not a philosophy. This is a very practical challenge that our country faces. And if we can model that at LUMS, along with our students, and I know there are many universities who want to work with us. I know that we had this discussion with His Excellency, our President Alvi, only last week. He was extremely encouraging in saying, yes, this is the leadership we need in this country. In fact, he asked us to lead on some national issues in framing, for example, intellectual property policies that are at a very nascent stage in Pakistan, which is just leapfrogging into a space where we can give opportunities to our young people. So I'll end with one thought which has kept coming up in this conversation about take the liberal arts, take the humanities, take these courses which won't pay you enough when you start your job. Actually, the facts are that this is not true. And that depends on your time horizon. So you're absolutely right. If you're a doctor, lawyer, dentist, architect, professions, any of the profession, engineer, you're going to earn more when you start off, or for that matter, from the School of Business. But if you look at a span of 30 years or 40 years, there are many studies in North America that say that if you've done a liberal arts degree, you're going to go much further in your earnings. And I'm talking about earnings that go into your pocket with that kind of education, because that education allows you to break borders and cross the silos in work so that you can jump. Aapne abhi jo bola tha, chemistry, the example you gave of chemistry and literature, that's precisely the patterns you want to be able to find and see things other people can't, because you had an interdisciplinary education. So it's a rather long answer, but an important one, I think, for all of us as we discuss this on a weekly basis and in our meetings and in our interactions with our students.
Wonderful. For the benefit of the younger lot, I'm just going to share one small research. I'll take 30 seconds. So they did a research of the Nobel Prize winners of 105 years, 1901 to 2005 or 6. And they were trying to understand what is it about these scientists that their peers don't have. Why would Einstein or Marie Curie or these guys win a Nobel Prize and not the other scientists? And every single one of them had one thing in common. They all had some liberal arts or some artistic inclination. Einstein was a violinist. And then there was interest in arts or literature or acting or something. It was not only the physics or whatever they were doing, but also something interdisciplinary that they were doing that would help their main area of interest as well. Very quickly, without time, Dr. Suleiman, what's your vision for the School of Science and Engineering? You know, we live in a society, Pakistan. We don't care about evidence. We don't care about science. You know, it's God's will. It's something bad we must have done, and we don't follow patterns and theories and hypotheses and evidence and all of that. How can we make young students learn and love science more than they do?
Dr. Arshad explained that, I think, very well in his version. I remember I was talking to a good friend who is a LUMS graduate, I think back in 1998 and 9. He was telling me, Suleiman, one of the things which has helped me a lot as a businessman, as a computer scientist, running one of the best software companies in Pakistan, was a course on philosophy I took as a computer scientist. And he said, "Kya abhi bhi aap course padhate hain?" And I told him, no, we don't do that anymore, and it's not compulsory. So I think he said one of the things he still takes away, you know, and it comes back again and again, is this philosophy, because it has helped him to run the company in a very ethical way, with lots of integrity, and by keeping in mind the well-being of the people who are working there, and mental health of the people, all coming from the very basic thing that's a course in philosophy. So I think what we have not, so I think when the school started, this was in the DNA, or when LUMS started, it was in the DNA that, you know, you would be actually exposed to these disciplines, because at the end of the day, we are solving problems for humans. So if you don't have empathy and we don't have understanding of how the people think and work, it is very difficult to solve these problems in 21st century. So I think now with this approach that we want to work with different schools and School of Science and Engineering, slowly but steadily under this new framework of Learning Without Borders, is actually trying to offer more of these opportunities through different programs, through running different centers where different faculty members work together by building new programs. Within the school, there was a no border culture, but I think we're also going outside. So I think if you want to solve problems for humans, it makes only sense to understand them. And liberal arts offers you the right tools and methods to understand humans. And I think we can't disconnect from that. I think that's where this marriage and merger is important. And I think as a LUMS, as a community of 5 schools and different centers, we're heading towards the right direction. I think we'll be doing and contributing to Pakistan, you know, with this mindset and framework.
So start teaching philosophy again, like you mentioned. But
we are.
Excellent. Dr. Arshad, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say 2 quick things. One of them, of course, I got carried away with the humanities and social sciences, and failed to mention that is our biggest school. And you know,
exactly.
That's our biggest school. And let's not forget, this is not the case in the world. This is a huge opportunity for us. Humanities and social sciences are unfortunately being forgotten in other universities around the world, good universities around the world, because of the short-term thinking of the professions being the ones who are sort of becoming the center of attention, and liberal arts going in the periphery, where historically universities were the other way around. And of course, I failed to mention Dr. Ali Khan. He is the dean of our School of Humanities and Social Sciences. And he's been there for forever, although he looks like he's 16 years old. Nevertheless, it is that kind of leadership that is going to take us further. And these compulsory courses of philosophy that you were mentioning, Suleiman, देखें बाबर साहब ने अभी क्या बोला था? उन्होंने ये कहा था कि the course he remembers the most from his childhood was Persian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Arshad Babar Saab ne मुझे एक दफा बोला, I was in the series, and we were recording, and Babar Saab looked at me and he said, ये देखे सामने सुलेमान बैठा हुआ है. मैं से कब से कह रहा हूँ कि he needs to bring all these things back to the university and school. And he said, सुलेमान, lumps का बच्चा क्या होगा? Lumps के बच्चे की निशानी ये होगी कि वो सच बोलेगा और ईमानदार होगा. लोग उससे पूछे पूरी दुनिया के अंदर कि लम्स के बच्चे की 2 निशानियां बताएं, तो लोग कहें कि वो ईमानदार है और सच बोलता है. And I think, and that's how he relates back to the philosophy and ethics.
I'm just going to add to that. This is the back flap of Babar Saab's book with the Persian quote by Sadi. So what he was saying, he was being honest. Very quickly, Dr. Sadaf, if there's one thing that we lack as a society other than science, it's rule of law. So, our lawyers, not all of them, attack hospitals. What do we do? What's your vision for the law school? How can we get these people who are the custodians of the law to be honest, to be professionals, to be custodians of the law? How do we do that? What do we do? What's your vision for the school?
I mean, you're not asking for a vision for the school. You're asking for a vision for full societal transformation. That's, how can one start to address that? I mean, one can start to address that at many different levels, in fact. And so one has to actually ask what one means by the rule of law, right? So is it, we can have parsimonious views, and this is an academic debate, but it's also a debate that we all need to engage with, right? Is it a parsimonious view of whatever the laws are, we follow them equally and everybody will be held to account under those laws? Or is law some system of justice and we need mechanisms whereby we assess what those are? I mean, I think a short answer to why Pakistan lacks rule of law is that the laws have been instituted in a manner that is undemocratic, unresponsive, not meant to lead to justice for the average person. It is meant to sustain a status quo which is highly unequal and highly unjust. And this dates from the advent of formal legality in the subcontinent, which has to do with colonial rule and all sorts of other, concomitant factors. So one can start to unpack that. One can start to see, there are lots of interventions that need to be made. And I don't think that there's, it's certainly not for me to, or anybody singularly, because that would be, again, exemplifying our search for singular truths, and that's not the way out, right? We all have to engage in debate. We all have to have mechanisms for having voice and supporting each other's, public airing of reasons. We need to fight for that space. And I think that that's something that, LUMS broadly has done, has been assailed for doing, has had to back away from doing, but nonetheless retains that spirit. And I think that that is the important thing that we need to sustain if we want to inch closer to, systems which are responsive, which are just, where we can have a rule of law that we agree to, right? Not simply one that we are oppressed by. So.
Babar Saab, go ahead, Babar Saab. You want to add to that?
Can I come in on this law? I mean, we call ourselves an Islamic country, and I think we are the most un-Islamic in our practice. अब देखें कि कुरान में शुरू में कहा है कि पूरा तोलो. What does it mean? Be fair. You cannot get a liter of milk in Pakistan from any market other than when it's packed, which doesn't have adulteration. पूरा तोलो का क्या मतलब है? फिर कुरान में ये कहा हुआ है कि बी फेयर. अगर आपके भाई आपके रिश्तेदार के खिलाफ भी आपको वर्डिक्ट देना हो तो you should do it. Where is it being practiced today? And we are still ourselves called an Islamic country, and the parliament makes it mandatory for all to study Quran without practicing it, without understanding what is written in the Quran. So, I mean, law means be fair. I mean, treatment of the way we treat minorities, we treat them worse than the Shudras in India. This is not Islam. This is not Islam.
There's a fantastic survey done by two professors of Washington, which is called the Islamicity Index. It's on the net, where they measure each society in the world, how Islamic they are, because of the rules and regulations and laws that should be followed, education, human rights, justice system, and all of that. And interestingly, the first so-called self-proclaimed Muslim society is on number 36. So all the top countries are allegedly un-Islamic that follow justice system and education and human rights and all the rules that we ought to be following. Anyway, that's another interesting debate. Barbershop, last question, we're out of time. I asked Razak Saab once, what next for LUMS? This was 10 years ago. It was 25 years then. What next for LUMS? What will make you happy? And with a little twinkle in his eye, said, if we could have a Nobel laureate coming out of LUMS, that'll be really great. 35 years on, generation after generation have come out of LUMS, contributed so much, become successful. What's next for LUMS, Barbershop? What would make you happier?
Well, I think we should continue to explore to see what, and I leave it to the younger generation and to the younger faculty to come up with new ideas as to how we can make the place better. It's not the monopoly of the elders only to think of what should be next. I think we should give every opportunity and room and encouragement to the younger generation to come up with new ideas how to take it forward, because the future belongs to the younger generation and they will make LUMS what it should be. So we should give them enough of authority, enough of power, enough of latitude, enough of resources so that they can chalk out the LUMS of the future. And my only wish and prayer is that it continues to produce good human beings. And that is what we really want to do. Good, honest human beings who will serve society and the people, not only of Pakistan, but of the world.
Dr. Arshad, what's next for LUMS? And then I have another question, Babar Saab. I can't let him off the hook. One more. But as a Vice Chancellor, someone who's right there with the people, the students, every day there are problems and solutions and all of that bombardment, pre-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID. We're not post-COVID yet. What's next? What's your vision as the Vice Chancellor?
Well, I'll pick up where Babar Saab left off. And he mentioned, don't forget the young people. The young people are saying one thing in a very loud voice, not just in Pakistan, but around the world. And that is, you are giving us an inheritance that is actually destroying the world. And that has to do with sustainability, with environmental degradation, and with all of the things that have to do with simple things like breathing fresh air and having a future for the planet. So in that sense, we have to respond as an institution. We cannot watch as spectators while this unfolds before us. And one of the things we are already talking about and are going to implement, it's one of our priorities at the university. And I'm very proud to say, by the way, on the equity issue here, I'll sneak that in, that our chief academic officer is a woman. Her name is Farhat Haq. And the vice provost, so she is the provost, and vice provost Tariq Jadoon, who's been there forever, but is the heart and soul of the university. They are leading this charge. And what is this charge? And the charge is to think of a very innovative curriculum where the students play a part as well, which has to do with environmental science, which has to do with big data, which has to do with the ethics involved in dealing with a new paradigm in how we value things, whether it is business valuation or whether it is a valuation in society. So I think this is very exciting to create programs that are interdisciplinary. So this brings in our whole direction towards unifying knowledge, where we break the borders and say, this program will not belong to a school, it will belong to LUMS. It will be a unified program, just like many other programs will be, just like some of the programs already are. So they already have elements of intersections. Many new graduate programs have come on the fore recently that are interdisciplinary, but they have to tackle big issues. So the aspiration is to set the bar very high and to have all of us work together in a singular fashion and make our contribution and gifts back to Pakistan and to the greater region about how we are going to make a difference about things that really matter to the next generation, which is our youth.
Fantastic. Baba Sahab, last comment, and I need your opinion on that, or your comment on that. Alumni, what would you say to the alumni? You mentioned in your book, you never left HSN. You were in touch with the teachers, and you also call it your mother. He said, my university, my college is my mother. So these alumni, they're all over the world. They're successful. What would you say to them?
I would say that they are one of us. I mean, we want to relate to them. They should relate to LUMS, and they should relate to each other. It's a tremendous source of strength and source of comfort to our alumni if they were to be networking with each other, helping each other, guiding each other, and also not forget that an institution like LUMS and like other education institutions around the world depend on the alumni to give us new ideas, give us support, and also to maintain a relationship with us, and also financially support it. We started a program only about a few months ago of requesting people to donate 1 day's income to LUMS. And not only this year, but every year for the rest of their lives. And they will see that one day means 1/365th part of their income. It's much less than half. It's a fraction of what they are learning to give it to LUMS for the scholarship program, so the people who are unable to pay for their fees are able to get that education. But one other message that I'd like to give to the people who may have the opportunity to listen to these talks, that I'd be very happy to welcome any other interest that any of the people who have listened to it, they come up with an idea that want to either elaborate on any of the things that I have talked about, or a new subject that they would like to discuss with me. And I would like to request Sulaiman Shaikh to coordinate this thing. I'll be back in Lahore, inshallah, next week. And thereafter, I'm available for extension of these discussions and talks. If anybody wants to pick up any subject and wants an elaboration, I'd be very happy to do that, because there may be something that I've missed out, and somebody that wants to know something in detail that I may have touched upon in these discussions. I'd be very happy to elaborate on that if I'm still around in the coming weeks and months. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, Babar Sahab. Always gracious. Dr. Arshad, Dr. Sulaiman, Dr. Sadaf, thank you so much for participating. And those of you who are watching, order your copy now, Learning from Others, Babar Sahab's autobiography, or I have to plug it in, the Urdu version, Kamal-e-Hamnashi. And next week, the videos come out. Don't miss out on the videos. Thank you, everyone. And वो गालिब का मिसरा है, मुझे यकीन है गालिब मुझे माफ कर देंगे. लम्स तुम सलामत रहो 1000 बरस, हर बरस के हों दिन 50,000. Thank you, everyone. God bless Pakistan.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Khula Hafiz.
Thank you, Adeed.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Khula Hafiz.
Lovely.